I am going to start putting up a picture and maybe some music because I got to tell you guys, Zoom is so funny when it comes to going live here. And so, welcome. I am doing the kind of last, I started out doing the 4 agreements, and then I remembered, well, oh my gosh, that's right. There is a 5th agreement. And so I also did something that was a little different this time. And y'all, you get to go through Diana's learning curves here. But they had a thing about starting a chat with it. And I thought I'd gotten out of it, but apparently I hadn't. And so it's like, well, there's been this little chat going on. And the challenge I have is that it's not as easy to access that, frankly, right at the moment. So I've got the whole, my Facebook page pulled up. I think it'll keep showing me the chats as we go along if you write something in the chat on the Facebook page. Anything else, I'm just gonna be too busy talking with you to look at or to pay attention to. So welcome, this is Wisdom and Wine. And because I've been all nervous, I'm gonna have a sip of wine, hang on. Things really do improve with age. And the 5th agreement, I find it very deliciously, like all of them. It's simple and yet it's very complex. And it simply is, be skeptical, but learn to listen. So be skeptical, and learn to listen. And so the 5th agreement came out in this book, a later book after the 4th agreement, aptly called The 5th Agreement, that Miguel wrote with his son, Don Jose. But it was so funny when I was pulling it out to give myself a refresher, I didn't realize that they had all come, they were doing an Austin presentation on my birthday. And so they came to my birthday party, and they all very sloppily signed my book for me, which I thought was really great. And we had a great time. And I think a picture on my website is from that party as well. And so be skeptical. And I have to tell you, this is a motto that I have had my whole life. On top of being a rebel, I also have been a skeptic in very, very large part, because most of what you hear isn't even true from yourself, your own head often, and from other people. And you got to figure, so I really did grow up for a few years. My dad was an exorcist, my stepmom was a medium. And we'd have, Ouija boards and seances in the living room along with the pyramids and all kinds of stuff. And so being very skeptical, I required some pretty dead on hard proof. I still do. And yet this whole agreement is be skeptical, but still listen. And so please, the book also, or the agreement in the book also talks about the fact that we speak in symbols. Human beings will speak in symbols. And a lot of those symbols have become the quote truth pretty much simply and only because we agree that they're true, not because they really are the truth. And part of it really, I think, is that we accept some of these things as true because it just makes life easier to negotiate. It really does. It makes life easier to negotiate. And who really cares that everything is just atoms spinning around at different speeds and densities, and that, that's what we've all friggin' agreed upon is a glass or the wine in it or my computer or a tree. Really, it can be pretty darn convenient. The challenge, though, is that it is only convenient, and it doesn't mean it's the truth. And that makes things become curiouser and more curious. And especially even when we start to get to religion. but that really is a debate for another time. And yet religions are going to fall kind of under this too. So for example, my very first website was Make It Sacred. And in part, it was because then, and I still do them, but I just don't sell them on the internet anymore or at all. But I had learned to make sacred fans and sacred instruments for like the Native American church or ceremonies and rituals and things like that. So for me, it was Make It Sacred. And I would hold classes on how to make, like my drum back there I made and the different things. It was around Make It Sacred. And what I found when I was going through that time in my life was that everything has been made sacred by us. Everything has been sacred by us, sacred trust, sacred, vows. There's a lot of things that we human beings have made sacred, but we're the ones that did it. In fact, I've been adopted into a Pueblo tribe, and my brother Jasper, and happy birthday, Jasper, that was yesterday. He used to get mad at us. He goes, "What is it? Oh, you white people looking for something sacred." He said, "Open your eyes. It's everywhere. It's in the air, in the mountains, in the trees, in the dirt around you." And he was right. And what I'm talking about and what this agreement has more to do with is the not the actual things like I consider they are sacred, but our thoughts and our philosophies and our religions and things like that. And so there was a guy, very, very interesting man. His name was John C. Lilly. He was a physician, a neuroscientist, a psychoanalyst, a psychonaut, philosopher, writer, and inventor. And he really is worth checking out. It's John C. Lilly. He did a lot of work with psychoactives, but he also did a lot of work with dolphins. But he coined a term that I also really love, which is human consensus reality. Human consensus reality, because that is exactly what the heck has happened on our planet. And this is, just think about it, check it out. Human consensus reality, which means that a whole bunch of human beings, a whole bunch of people agree on something, and then they tell everybody else that it's the truth. Really, people agree and then tell everyone else it's the truth. And if you start traveling the world, kind of like many of us have, you start to find out that it might be true in Thailand and it's not true in Egypt, or it might be true in Egypt, but it's not true in Peru, or it might be true, all of it might be true in those countries and not true in America. And so again, they're very subjective, and they are genuinely human consensus reality, which means a whole bunch of people made it up, decided that this was true, and then told everybody else. And then people chose to believe that that was true. And so that kind of really does describe a whole lot of what's been going on really, really well. And the Ruizes also say, especially Don Miguel, has said that almost everything that you and I know and have learned falls into that category of human consensus reality, which means it may not be true at all, or it may not be really true. And so that's why it's a really good idea to be skeptical. For example, I didn't go through the firewalk training, but I probably supported, 40, 50, a lot of firewalks. And so that I could, build the fires and all that. And everybody across all cultures and places believe that fire burns. Okay, that is a human consensus reality that is only true for part of the time. Because if you've ever done firewalking, which a whole lot of the people on this group, a lot of my peeps, they have. Shoot, they're instructors themselves. So we do know, hey, Patricia, we do know, and hey, Marilyn, that yeah, fire doesn't necessarily burn. And so again, we're looking at this human consensus reality. So to be skeptical, we really, really need to literally be skeptical of almost every single thing that we are told. And so I was trying, I couldn't remember, there's a saying that I didn't find. I'm going to give you two versions of it. One by a poet I loved as a teen was Edgar Allan Poe, and he said, "Believe nothing you hear, and only one half that you see. That's not quite the saying I was looking for. And then so I got to another one that says, believe nothing you hear, half of what you read, and only some of what you see. And I would say all versions of that are true. All versions of that are true. Again, because we have human consensus reality. We have people making shit up, calling it real, and asking everyone to believe it. I mean, we've just gone through a set of elections, and I got to tell you, in New Mexico, people were making stuff up, calling it real, and it was really startling, appalling, amusing, a whole bunch of things, but it wasn't true. And so the be skeptical is really, really masterful, let's say, because it's using the power of doubt to help us to discern the truth. And so it's really the discerning the truth. Now this, again, there's a lot of levels to it. It's around whenever you hear a message, whether it's from somebody else or from your own friggin' self, simply ask yourself, is it true? Is it true? And it's interesting because as a coach and as a teacher, my whole premise, the thing I've kind of like hung my hat on now, is I'm only interested in the truth. Only interested in the truth and supporting people to get to that. But this is going to be the truth as the individual defines it, not as I define it, because again, we're looking at human consensus reality. Shoot, I mean, the biggest thing I think anyone could do is drop everything you think you know is wrong. And that comes from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which, oh, I love those in my teens. Read them all, have them all. People would give me copies because I like them so much. But, you know, basically everything you know is wrong. And then a big sign in friendly letters that said, don't panic. So don't panic, despite the fact that everything you probably know is wrong. And so it's really puts us in a position of having to decide, one, what we're going to believe, but two, remember the second part of this is what are we going to listen to? And be skeptical, but listen. And so I'll have people say, you know, yeah, I believe my feelings or I believe my emotions. And I'm like, are you crazy? I mean, because we have all been domesticated. We cannot necessarily believe everything we feel because we're feeling things through filters. We're experiencing things through the filter of our domestication, through all the consensus realities that we've all lived through. And I mean it, they have changed over time. So your human consensus reality when you were, let's say, from 1 to 5 and then 5 to 10, oh, it really started changing 10 to 15. Totally different world from 15 to 20. You know, 20 to 25, it was changing. 25 to 30, massive change. When you hit 30, I swear to God, it just changed all the time, but you got more used to the changes. And so it's really around looking at where in you is a place that is stable, where, because the book talks about resting in faith as well. And what I have seen and what I support is that you don't believe what your mind is telling you. You don't believe all the voices in your head. Most of those are not true. You don't believe anything telling you you're a totally fucked up, screwed up piece of whatever. It's not true. None of that's true. And so one of the things I teach my students is one way to start, let's say, differentiating the voice of more truth as opposed to the voice of your mind, your judge, your victim, even all of those other parts of you, is that your mind and your judge and your victim and all are those voices in your head, what the Toltecs called the mitote. Mitote is 1,000 voices in the marketplace. So imagine you're sitting with 1,000 voices in the marketplace. They're really friggin' loud. They're really loud. And that's how I started to learn to tell the difference between that loudness of what the Toltecs called your parasite. And the parasite's just all the rules and your judge and your victim and all of that, from the voice of my highest, the voice of my intuition, the voice of my inner truth. And usually for me, it's a voice. You might pick it up differently. I know sometimes I'll just, well, to me, the voice has a feeling to it. And so part of learning to discern that for me, and for you as well, if you do it, is to discern the feeling difference between the voices. Because we've all got the mitote, the 1,000 voices in our heads. Every one of us does. And once you kind of do the work that the Toltecs can lead you through, you start to reduce those voices. You start to work them out. You start to understand, oh yeah, that voice, shush, that was my mom. Yeah, not buying that. Or that voice was what my religion told me, or my government told me, or whatever. You start to differentiate all of those different voices. And when the cacophony dies down a little bit, before that happens, I would use the feeling to get it. Because the feeling of our highest, it's calm. It's not pressuring. It's not insisting. It's not demanding. It's simply saying, here's this gem. Here's this piece of you. Here's this truth. That's all. And it's very quiet. It's very subtle. And you actually have to start quieting down the metote in your head to start to be able to pick it up. And that's where I use the feeling, because it's with the sound, with the actual voices or the words in our head, the same thing applies to our feelings. If I get really scared, that's a big friggin' feeling. I mean, it's like, boo. However, your whole body just goes, haywire. You all know what I mean. And there's that. And then when there's that knowing, it kind of slides in like a cool breeze on a warm day, or it's just like lapping against the shore. It's gentle, it's there, but it's not screaming at you. It's not yelling at you. It's not pushing you. It's not pressuring you. And so to me, that's part of what learning to listen is about. And I would say, and especially as I was learning this, I was even skeptical of that. I tested everything, drove people nuts, because I literally do not believe anything just unless I have experienced it. And I don't ask my students or clients to believe me either. This is where run the experiment comes in, and it's a great thing. Run the experiment, check it out for yourself and see. And if you do what Toltecs call stalking, and I've talked about that in other videos, you'll be able to watch what arises in your body, what arises in your mind, and start to separate those out and to look at the feeling state behind each of them. And so with the fifth agreement, be skeptical, but learn to listen. And that learning to listen also is around, like I said, I've been talking about, what are you going to listen to? And I've been talking about, what are you going to listen to within yourself? It then starts to beg the question, what are you going to listen to in the world? Because we have got a world that is practically screaming our doors down these days, to the point that you, me, and everybody, we're tired of the barrage. It feels a lot like a barrage. And so, one of the things that I do is that I still use my inner knowing when I encounter something new. It's going to feel right to me or not. And so, like, I've got people that I trust. Like, I really trust Alberto Viola, in large part, as and the work he does. And so I will tend to step out a little bit on faith. Or I don't trust a lot of people. Also, anyway, but I'm skeptical of everything. But it's around do that. So look and decide who you're going to start putting some trust in when you're listening. But you got to listen. And listening to me means you drop your preconceived ideas. You drop anything, you drop all your preconceived ideas about it. And you actually listen. What are they saying? what is the friggin' energy that they're putting out? What is their vibe? Anybody that asks you to believe them 100%, walk away. Trust me, just walk away right now. Because anybody that doesn't encourage you to check it out for yourself, in my opinion, is insecure enough or has a big enough ego that they're going to tell you instead of support you to learn it for yourself. So you've got to learn what part of yourself you're going to listen to, but also what part of the world are you going to listen to? Are you going to listen to the voices of your parasite, that judge inside of you? Are you going to listen to your parents who had their own judges, who were raised and domesticated by a bunch of people that had a different human consensus reality, but still had one? And I noticed that Patricia had made a comment about Byron Katie. Byron Katie has what we call, she calls it the work. And I cannot believe, I cannot recommend her more highly. And in her case, one of the things, and in the case of the book, the Fifth Agreement, it's to look at something, is it real? Is this reality? Or is it somebody's virtual reality? Or is it a human consensus reality? And it's when you bring in the skepticism, when you ask the questions, when you really listen, and you bring in a good dose of doubt, to doubt the symbols, to doubt what they're saying, to run an experiment, to try it on for yourself. Does it feel good to you today? Is it right for you today? And Byron Katie really does this. It's beautiful the way she does the work, because she simply says, is it true? And I probably learned this from her because I do this myself. Is it true? I'll give you an example. And some of you that are making comments, I've actually coached before, and I will ask you, you'll tell me something, I'll just say, is it true? And the beauty of such a simple question, if you then shut up and let the person process and listen, is that they're going to think about it. And I would say 98% of the responses I get when I ask that question is no, it's not. It's not true. And so I believe that every one of us actually knows the truth. We're just afraid of it, or we wish we didn't. And, you might laugh at that, but more people, it's like that Marianne Williamson poem that says that you're afraid of your friggin' greatness. Well, it's true. People are afraid. So there's a lot of times where they may not have learned how to do something. They may not know how to proceed necessarily. But if I ask them, is it true that you're stupid? Well, no. Can you learn to do this? Well, yeah. It's really that asking yourself, is it true? Ask that of yourself. You can even ask that of people around you, depending on their domestication into the human consensus reality, that'll affect their answers. But really, it just boils down to, I don't care what anyone else is thinking. And I support you not to be all that concerned about what other people are thinking either. It's at the beginning, we have to work ourselves out. We have to turn and look at ourselves. Be skeptical and learn to listen. Be skeptical of everything, including yourself. Keep going for that kind of holy grail of truth. Is it true? And here's the thing. We're not talking those absolute truths, because theoretically one absolute truth would be gravity. That's true for everybody, only if you're on Earth. It's not true on the moon, but let's not go there. But understanding that we all need, my prayer is that we find our own truth. Not my truth, not your parents' truth, not society's truth, but you find your own truth. So using the work of Byron Katie, brilliant, if that helps you. Asking yourself, you can simply use those simple words. Well, hers were, is it true? And somebody might say yes. And you say, well, how do you know? Can you know that it's 100% true? Most people can't get that far. And then if they say, yeah, I can know that, well, how do you know that it's true? Because the truth is that we don't. You know, we have assumptions, we have beliefs, we have ideas. And even if somebody tells you something, it doesn't mean it's true. It's like it's such a slippery slope. And so that's why the fifth agreement is so friggin' brilliant. Be skeptical, but learn to listen. Listen deeply, listen with every fiber of you. Listen beyond what someone is saying. And whatever you do, listen beyond whatever you think you're seeing. I mean, truly remember, believe nothing you hear and only half of what you see. In fact, when I teach Artists of the Spirit, I deliberately don't do it on Zoom. And people would say, well, why not? And I say, because people make snap judgments based on appearances. You've made them on me. You know, we make snap judgments based on what we think we see. And I want my students to learn to not do that. I want them to pick up energy and pick up other nuances without using their eyes. So be skeptical, really be skeptical, but also learn to listen. And listen beyond your beliefs, listen beyond addictions, listen beyond your judge saying you're not good enough, listen beyond your judge saying that person's not good enough. Listen beyond mind, listen more with your heart, and then be skeptical of every single friggin' piece of it and keep asking, is it true? Does that feel true to you? Does that feel true to you? And so I'm going to wind up here. I really appreciate there's some comments in the chat. And yeah, Patricia was just saying, Patty was saying she did a process, and that was the first question with Byron Katie. Is it true? Byron Katie is really out there. I very highly recommend her. She's got little pod things you can do, videos you can watch, books you can read. And when it comes to that delving, I'd say, into what me as a Toltec say, you know, all the beliefs and agreements that we've developed, that just simple query, is it true, will take you a long, long, long way. And so I am ending up, I thought I was done last week because I forgot about the fifth agreement. So I am ending up these things on the four agreements by the Ruizes. But I'll be figuring something else out that's fun to do for Wisdom and Wine moving forward. So we've got the holidays coming up. In fact, I have a feeling I'm going to be in North Carolina. I will be on the 24th, which is the next time I'm scheduled for Wisdom and Wine. And who knows what I'll do? Maybe I'll just sit here and eat turkey with you. But I intend to come on. Let's hope that it works that way. And if not, I'll put a note up or a message. So all my peeps, my friends, be well. Thanks for tuning in. If you have comments, or questions or more to share, I will be answering, or can answer you in the chat box in the messages. So I wish everyone blessed holidays, and we will meet again. Bye-bye.